The Starr and D'Amico Show, brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same-day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. The Montreal Canadiens are back home for a nice little stretch run after arriving back from the United States after a, let's call it, Marco, a very successful three-game road trip where they took 4 out of a possible 6 points. Welcome. Big thanks to all of our sponsors. Welcome to December, and that means a shopping extravaganza time, relaxation time too, maybe at McLean's, where Marco and I will be on December 23rd. And of course, getting your pet ready to fill out that stocking hung by your chimney with care. Fill it with goodies from Little Bear for your favorite pet, arguably perhaps your favorite family member. I'm not here to judge.
I wish I had a.
littlebearonline.com. And of
I
course,
wish I had a chimney.
the in-house shopping experience at Little Bear, a family-owned business, a proud sponsor of the show. You can find them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. Marco's successful road trip, 4 out of 6 points. They get smoked by Colorado, but whatever. Successful
I
trip
thought
here. Let's go.
anything. I thought anything 500 and up was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, yeah, and I think it's also in the how. Like, obviously, it's kind of a downer that the Canadians lost 7-2 in the last game, but there's a lot to like in what they did during the road trip, and I think that
Yeah.
that's what the focus needs to be on. I didn't expect perfection, especially not against the Colorado Avalanche. I kind of understood that that was going to be a loss. I was interested to see how Jakub Dovish would respond to that.
Uh-huh.
Um, there are comments on that we discussed on Sunday,
Yeah.
but I think what stood out to me on this road trip primarily was Juraj Slafkovsky. And I think that's, like Zachary Bolduc obviously did really well with the top line in those couple of games. And I think he's starting to find his mojo. But I think the player that impresses me most right now has to be Juraj Slafkovsky. The two-way play, the complete aspect of his play, looking like Bambi 12 months ago defensively, to just being physical, anticipating the play, cutting guys off, using his size, active stick. I just thought that you took him off the top line, and it's almost like the responsibility of having to like shoulder the 5-on-5 usage of a line he's taken on, and it's almost allowed him to grow more as a player.
It's funny because we've been talking about this player now for the last couple of weeks, a little bit more specifically, a little bit more in depth. And, he's projected for, low to mid 40s in point total, also projected for a career high in goals right now, looking
Mhm.
like a projection of a 24 goal season. But it's more than just goals and assists and points. And yet here we are. Let's talk about the positivity around Juraj Slafkovsky. Even if he doesn't hit the 50-point plateau, I don't want to be as dramatic as to say it's a coming out party for Juraj Slafkovsky, but it's definitely a more mature, a more NHL ready, a more defined role. That's what I see from Juraj Slafkovsky, Marco, when he was reassigned to that second line in terms
Yeah.
of games experience, not how many days he's been walking on planet Earth for, but how many games he's played in the National Hockey League. This young
Mhm.
man, I think, is almost taking on a leadership role and helping steer that second
Yeah.
line. And he does so many little things well. So has Juraj Slafkovsky, at 21 years of age, has he arrived?
In terms of the style that Juraj Slafkovsky was drafted to play, yes. I was actually having a good conversation with a couple of my Slovak journalist friends. They were messaging me over the weekend just to be like, hey, what have you thought of Slav's game? And we've noticed this and we've noticed that. And I was, like keen eye, right? Like even, when you're not covering the team, guys that see him from time to time see this stuff. But I think it's quite apparent when you look at the power game that he's been able to execute, the fluidity that he shows now in his skating. He's picked up a step. He's more mobile. You see him play a little bit more lateral nowadays as well, especially on that line with Demidov and Kapanen, right? So like you think back to that goal that was scored by Demidov against Colorado,
Yeah.
the quick pass reception, the spinorama to get out of coverage, finding Demidov for the one timer. Slafkovsky would have did not show the ability to do that prior to this season. It was very much a north-south kind of game. Well, it looks like the game's slowed down for him now just a little bit. And because he's not playing with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, who, let's be honest, drive their own line independent of who completes it, he's now being asked to drive a line with Ivan Demidov and then having Oliver Kapanen kind of hold it down defensively. And him and Demidov, the chemistry has almost been instant.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember right
Mm-hmm.
before the road trip, he had mentioned to us, he's like, Newhook used to say like it was like an adventure trying to anticipate what Ivan Demidov was going to do. And I remember asking him, well, now that you're playing with him, what's the process been like? And he's like, get him the puck. Just get
Yeah.
him the puck as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. And I think we'll make it happen. My job is to make space and to put him in the right spot. Well, that's exactly what we've seen from them in the minutes that they've gotten. I think a lot of fans are going to, make the rightful observation that perhaps that line should be getting more minutes because they have been showing a consistent amount of secondary scoring for the team. But I think it starts with Juraj Slafkovsky. And I think he's really kind of come in and helped them drive offense. And I think we can go through the different kinds of steps that he's improved to kind of flesh it out. Point totals will be point totals. That was my one complaint is I feel like he should have way more points than he has. He's always the fourth man on a play, I find.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that those details that he shows over the stretch of a season, the point totals I think, in my opinion, will continue to go up in a pretty substantial manner.
I understand more and more watching him play this season, what attracted him to the Montreal Canadiens scouting department and why they decided to ultimately draft him at number 1 overall. When I watch Slafkovsky out there, and again, he's got 13 points. He's got 6 of them on the power play this season, including 4 power play goals, which is not nothing. But his 5-on-5 game to me is starting to get better and better as the
It's
season moves on, right? But Marco, it's that package of speed to go with his size is, I think, such a rare thing. And I think it allows him to have a little bit more running room with the leash on, so to speak, in terms of watching him develop, watching him mature, and eventually, I think, starting to find his own version of himself as an NHL player. And then let's talk about his defensive ability. Right there
mhm.
with Nick Suzuki, when we talk about some of the better defensive forwards in the NHL, I mean, this guy, along with his captain, we're talking top 10 in the National Hockey League. That's quite the accomplishment to your earlier statement about points are points.
Yeah.
What makes him and what will make him a better NHL player is what he's accomplishing this year.
Well, I think what's interesting is even though he's playing 5-on-5 on that second line,
Yeah.
whenever the Canadians want to have like a shutdown situation where they have two lines back to back, being able to shut down the opposition's top six, they always put Juraj Slafkovsky back on the first line at the end of the game to be able to shut down the opposition. I think that says enough. That top line, when Juraj Slafkovsky is on, is one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the league. I think it's backed
Hmm.
up by a significant amount of data, and we talked about this on a previous episode. So it's telling that when you remove him from that top line, their numbers do go down defensively on one end, but on the other end, Demidov's chances for, chances against ratio also goes up, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So you do see that, and I think a lot of it stems from his active stick in the neutral zone. He covers a lot more ice than he used to. He's more aggressive in the top of the defensive zone to challenge the defenseman. So when you have your Slafkovsky coming at you on the ice, and you're the defenseman at the point, it's a little intimidating. You got to make it quick because he can come at you so quickly and cover so much of your passing lanes just with his reach, his stick, his body positioning, that you have no choice but to be able to react quickly. That's an advantage in and of itself. And I think he's just more alert. He scans the ice faster than he did in previous seasons. He's making decisions quicker. The only thing I'd like to see him do a little quicker is take that shot faster. That release needs to be a half second faster. And then after that, I think he's off to the races. But in terms of his playmaking ability, I mean, that pass that we saw to Zachary Bolduc against Utah, I believe.
Yep.
No, it was Vegas.
Yeah.
It was Vegas. It was Vegas. I mean, geez, the vision on that. The vision on that. It was the first goal against Vegas.
Right.
The vision on that goal was just incredible. So again, you're seeing him be creative, assertive, stronger. But I think his biggest change, and I think this is where you get flashes of Slafkovsky in his draft here, is his ability in transition now. He's going up the puck on his strong side. He's playing on the left as opposed to being on his opposite wing on the right. He's going up he's going up the ice on his strong side. He's able to keep the puck at a distance because he's got such a long reach to basically protect the puck with his body as he's coming down the left side of the boards. It affords his teammates more time to get into position, and then he's able to make a play, continue skating around to try and find the defenseman at the other point. All it does is it's giving him more options to create. And Juraj Slafkovsky's biggest quality offensively, in my opinion, is his playmaking ability. It's his passing. So if he's able to control transition and open up ice for passing, that makes him an extremely dangerous forward. And I would go on to venture that it would make him an even more important forward the tighter these games are going to get. Like now, everything's kind of open. But when we start getting into March, April, if there's playoffs to be had, that's when this kind of play is going to stick out even more.
You'd referenced the shot total. He's got 48, which puts him second on the team. Everyone looking up at Cole Caulfield, obviously, and that's the way it should be. Caulfield on 65, Suzuki and Slav both on 48. Coincidentally, Suzuki and Slafkovsky both at 14.6% shooting percentage. But I wonder about like his future role in that. We spoke about this on a previous episode, right? About Zach Bolduc. Some people think, third line winger in a best case scenario. Right now, he's on the top line. I still think he's keeping that warm for Juraj Slafkovsky. I still think Juraj Slafkovsky is the answer to that top line. Is it an experiment? Are they trying to see his chemistry with Demidov? Are they trying to motivate Zach Bolduc to figure out and get some more confidence in season? Because I mean, Slafkovsky looks very much the role of a top line player with Suzuki and Caulfield again.
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is yes. To all of those questions is yes.
Interesting.
when the number one thing taking Slafkovsky off the top line was to spread the offense. You can't be a one-line team anymore and expect to make the playoffs. The Canadiens got lucky doing that last year when goaltending was on their side. Can't do that this year. Not with 5 rookies in the lineup. Like, it's just not going to happen. So what do? You spread out the offense. And by spreading out the offense, you also put players that you trust with rookies that haven't yet earned your 100% trust. And I speak for Martin St. Louis when I say this. So by putting Juraj Slafkovsky with Ivan Demidov and Oliver Kapanen, well, there's a little bit more trust that goes in that line because you know that Martin St. Louis trusts Juraj Slafkovsky at 5-on-5. Heck, he'll put him on the ice when the Canadiens are, trying to defend a lead at 6-on-5 against, right? When the net's pulled, or when they're trying to have a matchup game at the end of the game, putting him back on the top line to defend a lead. So to me, I think it's very indicative of his overall defensive game. I mean, yes, he scored an empty net goal that we saw against Vegas, right? But Juraj Slafkovsky was on the ice to defend a lead, right? Like that's the confidence that he's gotten. And then by having Bolduc on the top line, you're trying to get him going, which they did. And so that's now you got two top 6 lines that are more or less going. That was awesome. More or less going. And when you put those two together, especially when you're at home and you have the matchup difference that the Canadiens will have, and they will have a lot of games at home in the month of December, you're going to be able to subsequently go one after the other, and they won't be so dependent on the Jake Evans line, which has been overtaxed, in my honest
Yeah.
opinion, because of a lack of confidence on the other two lines.
It's almost like, it's funny, because I think a lot of people, right, Marco, a lot of fans, and I think, we speak to a very educated fan base, and we're lucky to be, covering the NHL in this market with, the
Mm-hmm.
Canadians' history and everything else. And there's a very high collective hockey IQ. But a lot of people get wrapped up in the points, and I think there's going to be this element that if he doesn't get past 51, his career high, right? He went from 50 to 51, projected for a 44-point campaign. I got to be honest, I won't look at that as a negative. I really
I
won't. I
would.
really won't. If he only gets to 45, he doesn't crack the 50 threshold, because the finer details, man, the finer
Mm-hmm.
details in his game to me are very, very important for where this team hopes to be in the next
Yeah.
few years. Not a long term, but in the next few years.
I agree with you in the sense that the details are important.
Yeah.
I would be disappointed if those details didn't allow him to go beyond 50 points. That's the thing for me. Like
This year?
this year,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yep.
So this is the way I see it. The Canadians went through one of their worst offensive periods in the
Yes.
month of November, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There is nowhere to go but up from this point, right? Juraj Slafkovsky has 4 points in his last 5 games. Firing on all cylinders. They're at home. They're going to have a lot of the next games are at home. They're going to have advantage of ice. The quality of competition is a little bit how do I say this? A little bit less than what it has been the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, the last
Yeah.
2 weeks of competition have been ridiculous. So it allows them a little bit more room for creativity. So I expect more output from Juraj Slafkovsky in the month of December than we saw in November. Consequently, if he plays this way, I think we see a Slafkovsky like get very close to the 60-point mark. I don't think it's an out of the realm of possibility. I mean, again, one more good week and he's trending for 55 points, right? 60
Yeah.
points. So it's
Yeah.
all a question of, that consistency. But to me, I think, like I jotted it down. I think there's 6 games in the month of November where Slafkovsky could have gotten a point but didn't, either because he was the fourth man, just missed a deflection, like those kinds of things. That's what I love. That's the unspoken value of the player on the ice. Eventually, those players get rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. He's playing the right way. He's playing
Yeah.
the way that makes him valuable, the kind of player that teams draft in a top 5 in a regular draft that just go roughshod. And I think, again, if he were playing with Nick Suzuki during this last little stretch, he'd probably be at 18 points right now and 20 points right now. Probably because that top line exploded over the last 3 games. Um, I think that when you look at the complementary aspect of it, when the Canadians finally get a legitimate 2C and Kapanen gets bumped to third line, and what a third line center he would make,
Oh my gosh.
then you're cooking with gasoline because you'll have taken the time to get a Zachary Bolduc going. You know that Juraj Slafkovsky is flying, and you've given Ivan Demidov an offensive weapon in the absence of Alex Newhook to keep him going. And you look at Demidov's point totals. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. He's been very effective
Yes.
since Juraj Slafkovsky has been put on his line.
If
24 games.
we did this again, and we've done an episode on this before, so like
Mhm.
quickly here, like the 2022 redraft, it's a fascinating draft.
I'd
Slav
still
goes
put Cooley
one.
ahead.
Logan Cooley has 59 goals in 183 games, right? Lane Hudson is into that second round, right? I mean, he's obviously having a fantastic start to his career, but Juraj
Yeah.
Slafkovsky is still a top 3, top 5 in a redraft
Top
today. If
5.
you had to
I'd say
do it,
top 5 because, yeah, I'd say top 5. I think Lane Hudson is number
Does
1.
Cutter Gauthier go ahead of him?
Yeah, you're starting to see where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the draft in general, there are
Yeah.
2 players that have really kind of hit another stride this year. One of them is Cutter Gauthier. I mean,
Yeah.
right now playing on a all cylinders line, 28 points in 24 games, 14 goals in 24 games. Like he's
Yeah.
playing out of his mind right now, but
Yeah.
so is mostly everybody in Anaheim. And the other one is Simon Nemitz in New Jersey.
Yep.
15 points in 25 games, really starting to get going offensively, being used a ridiculous amount of time. Now that that with Dougie Hamilton injured and Jonathan Kovacevic still out, like he's getting a lot of minutes, and I like what I've seen from him. So I would say that he's part of that conversation. It's a good top 5. I mean, for a draft that people thought was going to be, bad, it's a
Yeah.
solid top 5
It
so
is.
far.
It
So
is.
it's a better top 5 than 2021. How's
Yes.
about that?
I
You
agreed.
know,
And
I
like you said,
think
a
that
little
Canadians
bit of a
fans
sneak
have
attack.
less. Yeah, but Canadians fans have less to be disappointed about the outcome of the 2022 draft than say the Buffalo Sabres picking Owen Power right now at first overall. Right? I think that's
Correct.
more of
Correct.
a disappointment considering how he was hyped,
Yeah.
and the way that things have been going in Buffalo. But if he stays a Sabre, we'll see. There may be room for him to go and branch out elsewhere in a better environment and thrive.
Uh-huh.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way about some of the way that Juraj Slafkovsky was used early in his career, where he wasn't necessarily put in the best spots to be performant. Remember those that first season on the fourth line primarily.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I
Agreed.
think that it's a marathon. It's not a race. And when it comes to Slafkovsky, if the details in his game are what they are now, I think at 22, 23, you're looking at a 60 to 70 point power forward winger capable of playing on your top 6, capable of helping you keep leads, but also the guy that's going to be able to make space and just basically connect with any of the centers you put him with. That's the vision I have for him.
Yeah.
And there is a world where he goes above that, right? There is a world where he goes above that. I don't think that many people had Nick Suzuki, when he broke into the NHL at 2021. Not many people had Nick Suzuki being an, almost 90-point center in this
Mm-hmm.
league. But, sometimes they continue to get better. It's something we've seen of Slafkovsky. He's shown an ability to continue to get better. So let's see where that ceiling takes us, because right now you have Lane Hudson, who I believe is primed to be one of the top offensive defensemen in the NHL. You have Logan Cooley, who is a number 1 center in the NHL.
Yeah.
I hope that injury is not too serious.
Yeah.
And then Simon Nemitz is trending to be a top pair right shot defenseman, and Cutter Gauthier looks like a prime power forward in his own right. So you have all these options. You have all these players that are there. I don't think the Canadiens made the bad choice. I think they walked out of the 2022 draft looking quite good. If there's
Yes.
a pick that they have to question, it's probably at 26, not at number 1.
Correct.
Yeah. So other than that, I think that Juraj Slafkovsky has shown a rare ability that is not available on the Montreal Canadiens, that they would probably have to pay through the nose right now had they not drafted him to fill. So the way that he's evolving, I think it's good. I spoke to a couple of NHL sources, execs, scouts over the last I'd say week, and a lot of them have echoed the same thing. What a player he's going to be.
And you're starting to see the reasons why. You can follow Marco D'Amico at M and D'Amico. Read all the latest at rg.org. And a big shout out. Don't forget, we're going to be live from McLean's December 23rd. And if you're looking for the best in your security for around your house, you can trust Cabletel at cabletel.com. Proud sponsor of the show, the best in home security, and been servicing the Quebec and Eastern Ontario markets for more than 20 years. Check out their website for more information and great deals too at cabletel.com. Marco, thanks as always, man.